A lot of folks don't know who you are or who I am. Dryden, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are we? What are we doing?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder and CEO of Blue Book Cities. I also run Praxis. We're building the future of cities. Praxis is our community of pioneers that are moving to our first city. We're here in the first sort of Soho Praxis house, day zero. People haven't moved in yet. It looks abandoned, it's not.
You just got the lease this week, right?
Yeah, we signed it 2 days ago. So
wow.
yeah.
Well, how many people can live here?
11.
11 people.
A lot of people, yeah.
This is going to be like the ultimate frat house.
No. It's going to be a highly productive environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you've mentioned Praxis, and Blue Book City, Blue Book Cities. What every entrepreneur has like this dying itch that they're trying to scratch. There's something wrong with the world they need to make right. What is your version of that?
Yeah, so we're building the future of cities. So sort of historically, cities have been organized around labor markets. People move to cities to get jobs, to accrue social capital. They cash that social capital out in dating markets. They couple up, get married often, move to the suburbs to find community. And often people find community online as well. And the sort of global labor market city being organized around labor markets sort of isn't organized around community. Cities don't sort of they don't rest on a foundation of shared values. And this is something people really want. They want to organize around shared values. And COVID sort of radically changed the nature of cities in that it caused the labor market to migrate to the cloud. People started working remote. Their jobs now exist on a computer. They follow them wherever they go. They can travel wherever they want. And so people will leave these sort of lonely, unsafe labor market cities and reorganize in communities around shared values. And so we're building a new city organized around shared values, for people who don't have to sort of live in a physical labor market, who's sort of work remote.
I see. And right now, cities are just kind of incidental gathering places. They've achieved density through history, but there is no mission statement of New York or
right.
mission statement of Milan. They just have kind of coalesced over time, and everyone have different mission statements, but they just happen to geographically coalesce around those places.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you say you want to build a new city, how does one build a new city?
Well, yeah. So, typically the model is you go out and you acquire land in some place with, geographic characteristics that lend it to sort of economic activity. So you get land by a sort of natural harbor, turn it into a port. You get land near, a mine or something like that, build a mining town. This is sort of the sort of historical modality of building a labor market city. But our vision, sort of for these new cities organized around shared values, is to build these massive communities of pioneers online, people who want to organize in the physical world around shared values, and sort of aggregate demand for a city before it exists, and use that demand, have people signed up for the city before anything's built, use that demand to underwrite the supply, then go out, buy land, acquire land, build buildings, and so on and so forth, move people into the city and grow it from there. So it's a demand-first model to building new cities, whereas historically there are these sort of gradual things that were supply side first.
So I sign up for this new city online around some set of shared values. What is the shared values that Blue Book Cities is espousing for? Is it one monolithic set of values, or is it kind of like different Facebook groups where it's you create your own values and then there are different cities built for you?
So the vision for Blue Book Cities is certainly pluralistic. We want to build a ton of different cities around a ton of different affinities. And Praxis, our sort of first, the first community that we're building a city for, is a group of people who sort of consider themselves pioneers and who want to go out on the frontier and build sort of pioneering technology and do pioneering science and do pioneering art, and are the kind of people who would have stepped on the Mayflower 400 years ago. That's sort of the ethos. It's like a sort of true builder ethos, the sort of radical, what San Francisco was, what it no longer is. That's the core sort of vision for Praxis.
Wow. So it's funny you should mention that, because you think about explorers. In prior eras in history, we had amazing explorers. We had Magellan, we had the ancient Greek explorers, but now there's no explorers. Where can we even explore anymore? It seems like it's either that spirit seems to only manifest in digital forms now. I mean, the closest thing is kind of space, but that's very
Right.
inaccessible. It's not like sailing. Anyone can kind of sort of sail.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as amateur astronaut. You can't really just get your way to like low Earth orbit.
Right.
So in a way, it's like we live in the most technologically advanced part of history so far, but it's also the one that has the least opportunity for someone who has an explorer mindset.
Yeah. No, I think that's definitely true. I think we're radically constrained. The whole world feels like own space.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can go to Antarctica or something like that, but it's pretty inhospitable. It's pretty cold. It's sort of unclear if there's anything actually there to go see beyond the penguins or something. And so the opportunity is to go build something new culturally and sort of technologically, and sort of like the way that you do this is by building a sort of new community of people that's organized a new set of values that sort of divorces itself from the meme complex, the sort of global meme complex that everyone else is subscribed to, and to develop your sort of own aesthetic, your own ideas, and to be with these people in a physically sort of co-located place all the time. This is how you sort of exit the meme machine of modernity.
Where did you get this idea? And when you tell people, I don't know, your first 10 believers, what's their immediate visceral feedback to you?
I think, I got the idea. I've been thinking about new cities for a really long time. And I wanted to build a new greenfield city. I wanted to I wanted to think about sort of what the future could look like what it could feel like. I think in sci-fi often there's sort of this cold, dystopian, sort of transhumanist aesthetic that's very unappealing and sort of viscerally unappealing, and intentionally so, to everyone. And there's this question, can we develop this sort of warm aesthetic, this more beautiful, this sort of uplifting aesthetic that makes you feel heroic, makes you want to do challenging things, pioneering things.
Her versus Blade Runner.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny you say nobody wants the cold aesthetic. I really want a cyberpunk city. Can we do one for those?
We could do one. We could do one. But I think you don't want global 2049 Blade Runner. That's not necessary.
But I still want to get back to where did you get this idea? Because I'm sure many people get flashes of it would be cool to have a new city. Were you very upset with the existing cities? Was there a moment where, I don't know, you were waiting in line at the city council office for too long and you just were fed up? Was there a triggering moment, or was it just purely a positive kind of framing from day one?
I think the negative framing is something like, I grew up hearing about the flying cars, going to church with my dad sort of on the way, talking about, hey, this is what's going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, informed by sort of Ray Kurzweil books and George Gilder and people like this. And then those things never happened. And that was pretty disappointing. It's why didn't these things happen? And simultaneously, you see a deeply sort of spiritually unhealthy culture, where people in the United States just their foundational beliefs are not sort of reconcilable. You have these two groups that have radically different views about sort of how one should live, and it feels like you can't really reconcile them. And it feels like organizing political units around labor markets when people have these sort of deep beliefs that just can't mesh seems unwise. And that we should organize new cities around shared values, shared beliefs, and a shared vision for the future. And the way you get back to the future is you organize people around their sort of shared beliefs, which imply their sort of preferred vision for the future, and then they build towards it. And if you organize people in communities who have sort of diametrically opposed visions for the future, you end up in sort of this loggerhead scenario where nothing gets built and no one moves forward.
Yeah. All their energy gets used in conflict rather than...
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so let's get to the nuts and bolts. People are watching, it's why should they believe that they're staring at the future version of the person who's going to build the new cities? You look like a guy in a hoodie. Why are you going to build a new city? If you told me you're going to write software, then we're just, fine, whatever. Right? People believe you, but building cities is so big. What about your background and what about your plan is credible?
Sure. I am a guy in a hoodie. I think more people can do incredible things than probably people recognize, and that's sort of one of the goals of Praxis is to tell people, hey, you can work on a wildly ambitious project and pursue it with maximum intensity, and you might win if you work hard enough for long enough. My background is mostly in investing. So the first job I had was at an activist hedge fund. We had a large position in a big master plan community developer, did a bunch of research. I've been doing sort of work in the new city space for many years, particularly sort of investment work at hedge funds. I left a couple of years ago. I wanted to sort of throw myself into this project more fully. Left my sort of last job with my now co-founder Charlie Callahan. And we flew to a bunch of different countries, frankly, that had the highest density of new city projects. And we spent 6 months meeting with all the top sort of new city developers or government officials that were overseeing these projects, architects, designers, engineers, and so on and so forth. And we built this sort of big mosaic of the space, like what's going on in the space. We had a thesis that one could build, that you could solve the demand side of new cities sort of prior to engaging in any of the supply side questions. And based on all of our work, that seemed like it was actually the case. It's like there are thousands of people who build buildings get built every day. That's not the hard part. That's not the hard problem. The hard problem is convincing thousands of people to leave their homes, leave the social networks that they're already plugged into, and go somewhere new, and go somewhere like so far flung that there's enough open land to even build a city in the first place. And so tying up land, doing deals with governments, all these things are actually much easier as a city entrepreneur if you have the leverage of demand on your side. If you can go to a country and say, hey, we'd love to bring you a slice of Silicon Valley, and perhaps this is a country with beautiful landscape and it's like on the water, and they have a tourist economy, right? And it's highly seasonal, and then a pandemic happens and it completely evaporates, and you actually want a bunch of software engineers, you want a bunch of people in your country who are building companies that maybe are less seasonal, or maybe won't leave because there are no jobs to be had during a pandemic. And so the sort of like economic benefit of attracting a bunch of super talented remote workers, particularly ones who are super excited about building the future, is just like insane. So it makes all the other things, acquiring the land, doing deals with governments, building the buildings, and so on and so forth, a whole lot easier if you have the people first.
When you talk to these city officials and developers and whatnot, given just how early you are in your plans, what's their response? Are they skeptical? Are they excited? What do they ask you about? What are their non-negotiable needs from their end?
Yeah, so the people that we've talked to are really excited about, frankly, like the sort of the demographics and the character of the people in our community. So we have a lot of young founders who are insanely talented, and for them it's like, wow, we could get people of this caliber. That's super, super exciting.
So when you talk to them, you already have something to offer. You're not like, hey, how about I build a city here? Yeah. You're basically, your starting point, the conversation is, I have these people. Yes. Do you want the people? Not, can we get land to build a city so much? Yeah. We come with value on day one. It's like, hey, we're coming over with all these people who are building these amazing things, and they'd love to live in your country, and we want to build like a beautiful environment for them to do so. And I think sort of prestige on the global stage, like having the most talented entrepreneurs in the world, that is super exciting to a lot of governments. That they were the country that attracted like the most talented tech entrepreneurs, engineers, artists in the world. So when you talk about the people you already have, are these? Tell us about them. How many people do you have? How did you acquire these people? Yeah. Where are they now? What are they doing?
Yeah, so we have a few thousand people in our distribution, and the sort of core community is called Praxis. In Praxis, we have founders. My friend Igor is building a new search engine. It's an example of a founder. Ani is a writer. He's in our community.
Mutual friend.
Yeah, mutual friend. Zach is an investor. We have a bunch of interesting people.
Okay. Are these just friends you collected over time? How do you acquire? I guess, is there a formal channel in which you're trying to acquire users that are aligned with this vision?
The first dozen are sort of founding members. We're all, my most interesting friends, basically. I think probably people find out about us the most through Twitter. Basically everyone gets referred through word of mouth, or they find out about us on Twitter. hit up someone who's already involved and then get looped in. We haven't done really like any sort of marketing at all. We've been publishing a few member pieces, like essays that they've written, but they're sort of like, sort of quasi-academic, sort of intellectual. They're not like going super viral, listicle. It's mostly just word of mouth at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And when they sign up, like, is the idea that you're signing up eventually to move to this futuristic city, or is it more is there a more immediate value proposition? Like, do people know what they're signing up for? It's like, when you join Praxis, it's all fun and games, but one of these days you're gonna pack your bags and ship for your container to some unknown country and join your friends in this new adventure. Is that what they're signing? Do they know that's what they're signing up for? Yeah.
I mean, that's the core idea of Praxis. It's we're all, we all want to be pioneers, and we want to move to this new city together. And we want to build the future of cities together. And certainly there are value propositions like that are immediate. I mean, one is just you're plugging into this network with a ton of amazing, sort of super talented people. Two, you can live with them in these Praxis houses. We're going to work in this space.
Yeah. Okay, so let's tie it back here, because we've talked about this grand vision of this futuristic city somewhere, but you're also renting real estate in Soho,
right,
in New York. So what's with the real estate thing right now?
Yeah. Well, so Praxis started as a purely online community. We were hosting events on statecraft and startups and all sorts of things. And we decided to host a retreat to bring everyone together. We'd all spent a lot of time like on Zoom together, hadn't met. So we did that in Austin in January. And by the end of the retreat, just about everyone was starting to organize to live together spontaneously. And we were like, wow, like, this is pretty cool. We should just rent a big house and economize, get a really big house. So we did that in Austin. Everyone really liked it. And we decided to sort of scale Praxis houses. So we decided to lease a bunch of houses in all the cities that we live in, sort of major. So New York, Miami, Austin, LA, San Francisco. Praxis members can come stay in the houses, they can move between houses, and it's sort of like a subscription living model. And for us, it's super cool because it brings everyone together. It's really great for community building. It gets everyone off the 12-month lease cycle. So as soon as the city's ready, as soon as their sort of villa or apartment's ready, they can move. And they're not paying double rent. They can go visit, not pay double rent. And then it's also just an amazing sort of space to introduce people to the idea. It's like a showroom. We're gonna have a big model of the city here, and yeah, so it's distribution as well for us.
Okay, and it's also kind of like a beta. It's like a beta trial run for what's it like to live with your future buddies.
Right. It's like everyone joined Praxis to live together in a city in the future.
Yeah. Can you stand each other in the future?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
yeah.
Okay. How long has the co-living situation happened?
We started like a month ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're new.
This is day one, guys.
Yeah.
Day one. Cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I see. So there are a couple of phases going on. First, you're recruiting people based on a shared common vision. Second, kind of before the grand city gets built, you have almost like a cloud, a virtual city of cloud on-demand apartments in existing cities.
Yep.
These are like containers. You go to them and then you can move around them.
Yeah.
You're living with potential future citizens.
It's the decentralized city.
It's a decentralized city. It runs on a virtual machine called New York and London.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's just like to warm everyone up. And if once the city gets built, people have the option, hopefully, to move to the new place.
Yeah, it's like a hub and spoke model. So I think people are going to be a lot more nomadic. So most places are somewhat seasonal.
Yeah.
Mediterranean climates, often somewhat less so. But I mean, I expect to spend a lot of my time in New York and LA and all these other places. For the balance of my life, the vast majority I want to spend in this, in the city we're building. But certainly there are a lot of people that I like that are here and that are in other places. And so I think people will want to live a highly nomadic lifestyle, and we want to sort of facilitate that, like give them this sort of hub and spoke option, sort of future network to live in.
Okay. Where do you think these cities will be?
So we're talking to a bunch of governments on the Mediterranean. I find that climate to be amazing.
It's California for Europe.
Right, exactly. I am from California. It's like other California. I think a lot of the governments there are really great, really thoughtful. and there's a ton of sort of beachfront land that's just like totally immaculate.
Like whereabouts?
On the Adriatic, there are some countries that are nice. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if Italy would be amenable, because Italy is like eastern side of Italy is on the Adriatic, and of course like Croatia and all these places. So these are nice places. These are not
They're nice
like
places,
in
yeah.
the desert in a not I don't know, a very hot place.
No, yeah, definitely not. It's I think when you're sort of like liberated from the remote work city, you had a job in Chicago, now you can go elsewhere. You want to go somewhere nicer, probably. Like physically more beautiful, better climate. Chicago's great, but like Italy's better in terms of climate.
Yeah. Jeez, and people are thinking about moving to Mars. Like this is
Right.
this is quite a bit of an upgrade.
Right. I think Mars is sort of like spiritually important. I think it's important to go to Mars. I think it's important to go sort of out onto like new frontiers. I don't particularly want to go to like the Gobi Desert just to go to the Gobi Desert and like live there all the time. I'd love to go check it out. Mars seems different than the Gobi Desert though.
Yeah, Mars is a step for humanity.
Yeah.
But this is like a solution for our spiritual and political quagmire, short of going to Mars. I mean, that's going to just take way too long to execute. This is something we can do like now.
Yes. And to figure out a model of governance that's sustainable when we go elsewhere. Like as we go to the stars, we want to have like something sort of worked out that works, so we don't end up in the same. I mean, the 20th century was a disaster, and sort of unclear that things are going to be better in this century unless we make them so.
That's great. I mean, it's like when the founding fathers came to the U.S., they took some source code from the various Enlightenment thinkers, and in a way, it's kind of like these cities. Clearly, the current political bargain has problems that are didn't age that well. It aged decently, but now we're starting to really struggle. So hopefully find a new template of what works for this reality of people and tribalism and internet, especially the internet.
Yeah.
Work out a model that works. And this could be the Linux of how to govern in the 21st century.
Yes.
And once Mars is online, we can just let's get the repo from the Blue Book City, and we'll fork it a little bit.
Yeah.
Here's our here's our planetary constitution.
Exactly.
Is that enough impact for you, Dryden?
That would be good. Yeah, that would be good. I would like that.
Okay.
Definitely.
Awesome. So where do people sign up? What do they need to know? Where do they find you and this whole project?
So we have a website, praxissociety.com. They can follow me on Twitter, Dryden, WT Brown, on Twitter. That's pretty much it.
Tell their friends.
Yeah, tell your friends if they want to do, work on a heroic project, hang out with us here, move to a new city. Most importantly, then definitely sign up.
Awesome. Very exciting. Can't wait to see what happens. We'll be following closely.